Welcome to Flipping Tables, where we bring all of our religious thinking to Jesus, who flips the table for his upside-down kingdom. I'm Julie Sexton, and I'll be your host. This is Season 4, Episode 5 of our series on Matthew, The Way of the Kingdom of Heaven. I'm here with my co-host, Twyla Brown, and we are still sitting in Matthew 2. We're just going to pick up where we left off in our previous episode, and I just think this is a really good place to sit with Jesus during the Christmas season. And I, for one, am seeing things in this chapter that I have never noticed before, and I believe that it would be fair to say that my tables, the ways that I see and think, are continuing to be flipped just by lingering in this chapter. And this is something that we want Jesus to do at this table. We welcome him to lead our conversation and guide our thoughts and our words. Isn't that right, Twyla?
That is right.
We follow the table flipper. We are all in with him.
Yeah. And that's what we pray for before we record episodes, is just that he would reveal himself and it be his words and his ideas and not us. And so, yes.
And we're very teachable, right? Like, we want to learn.
We've come a long way, baby.
We have come a long way. We are not set in our religious ways of, like, I kind of am in this challenge of teaching Revelation to people, young adults, who just want me to tell them what they already believe about it.
Yeah.
Is true. Mm-hmm. And I just refuse to do that.
Yeah.
Because I want them to leave room to grow and to change.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just kind of, why do I do that? It's because this is the posture that we try to take in our lives.
Yep. We wrestle it out.
We wrestle it out, and we don't take anything that we were just taught and as like solid.
We do the work.
We do the work to make sure that it was solid.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that we weren't taught anything solid.
No,
it wasn't solid.
No. But it's good to go back and fact check what you've been told. Let's go figure it out for sure.
Absolutely. And I do think Revelation is a good place to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot there to wrestle out.
Because something that my husband and I keep talking about is the Jews did not think that the first Advent was going to go down the way that it did. Mm. And so it would be really arrogant of us to think that we could figure out the second Advent.
There you go.
And so I just hold these things very loosely. Mm-hmm. So that's what we do at this table, is we hold things loosely, but what we know that we know, we hold on to it very, very tightly.
Yes, we do.
So we're going to pick up in verse 13. After the Magi left, Joseph is warned in a dream that it's time to pack up the family and flee to Egypt. It was urgent. It was something that they needed to get right on. And remember, they are a young couple. They are poor, not quite as poor as they were before the Magi's visit, because now they have been lavished with these expensive gifts that the Magi brought that now are going to be the financial means to help them on their road trip to Egypt.
Yes.
I just love that. I love how God provided for them.
Yes, he does.
So, Twyla, can you pick up and read in verse 13?
Yes. When they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up," he said, "take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. And so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son."
Okay, I'm going to tell you something that I don't know if this is going to surprise you, but it surprised me, and we've not talked about this before. But apparently, Bethlehem is only around 70 miles from Egypt.
I don't think I've ever made that connection.
No, I had not either. That's what I'm talking about, friends. This was like a table flipping revelation to me because I
mean, we've looked at a map before, but we just never really thought about how many miles is that.
So apparently the most direct route that they would have taken would have led them through the Judean wilderness to the border of Egypt. And that's really all they had to do. We don't know how far they went into Egypt. If they went into like Alexandria or something, it's like, then it would have been like a long way.
Okay.
But just to get them safely out of Herod's jurisdiction, they really only had to travel about 70 miles.
Well, that's good.
I know, because 70 miles with a toddler on foot, like that's no big deal.
Does not seem fun.
I mean, through the desert, the wilderness. I mean, we've been to the Judean wilderness.
Right.
So, it didn't look like a place that I would have wanted to set out on foot with.
Probably not.
A child.
That's really interesting. Thanks for pointing that out.
But it was really interesting. Mm-hmm. And another thing, so it made me ask another question. I was like, well, was Egypt still under Rome's jurisdiction, which apparently they were at that time. At the time of Christ, Egypt was still a part of the Roman Empire. And I read, again, this surprised me too, that there was a large number of Jews that were living in Egypt at that time, maybe even up to 1 million, which kind of blew my mind. So all this time in my mind, I have pictured that Joseph and Mary and Jesus would have been there kind of by themselves and felt extraordinarily isolated. Mm-hmm. But it seems that they could have possibly met up with other people with refugee status. And they could have been a part of maybe a community of other Jews living there. And I just thought, wow, these are like all like pretty significant shifts in the way that I think about this story now. Mm-hmm. And of course, because we have a sweet spot for refugees, I love that Jesus can personally identify with refugees. And it was something that I found myself sharing pretty regularly on my trip.
Yeah.
This summer with the Afghan refugees.
Yeah. How special.
Yeah. To be like, Jesus can relate to you in your circumstances because he was forced by unsafe circumstances to become a refugee. And I've heard it put this way, that no one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark.
Yeah.
And Herod was a shark, known for eliminating all threats to his throne, whether it was his wife, his sons, whatever. And I just kind of want to talk about refugees for a few minutes, Twyla, because welcoming refugees and immigrants is an important value at our table and at our ministry. It's why I had Bree Stensrud, the director of Women of Welcome, on the podcast last year to talk about her book, Start with Welcome. And I highly, highly recommend that book, especially now in this really heightened hostility that is unfolding all over our country against refugees and immigrants and undocumented people. Mm-hmm. And so, friends, if you're not a reader and you're not going to read the book, could you at least go follow Women of Welcome on social media? And if you do social media, which almost everybody does, because I'm constantly learning things.
Ahas all the time.
From their platform. Yeah. And just and I trust them.
Yeah. Yeah, she's solid in her theology. It's a great account to follow if you are open to learning.
So, Twyla, you and I have come a long way in this area, having lots of tables flipped, to become an ally and a supporter of immigrants. Mm-hmm. And we grew up pro-life. We are still pro-life, but we have broadened our view of immigration and see it and understand it now. That is a pro-life issue. We believe that all of our neighbors have a right to flourish. We have learned to avoid using dehumanizing language. I cringe when I hear people call them illegal or aliens or a whole variety of other terms. Mm-hmm. Because that's dehumanizing. Mm-hmm. These are people made in the image of God, image bearers of God, a lot of whom are Christians.
Yeah.
And I don't want, here at the start of this episode, I don't want to lose you, our listeners. But this passage, it demands that we kind of talk about this and acknowledge that the church is not leading well here. We are not leading from a place of compassion. And I just think if we could just make that adjustment to lead from a place of compassion. We talked about in the last episode how disturbed Herod was, and then how disturbed Jerusalem was, and the Pharisees and the scribes. Everybody was disturbed. We should be really disturbed about the things that are happening in our nation around oppressed people.
Mm-hmm. I have so many thoughts, and it's something that I wrestle with constantly. And I just would beg people to not be quick to paint with broad strokes. Something that really influenced and framed the way that I started thinking about people who were risking their lives to come to this country for hopes of something better was a newsletter from our friend George, who was a missionary in Guatemala, who we met on our trip to Israel. All these good people come from there. But he is a great writer and storyteller. Mm-hmm. And in one of his newsletters, probably shortly after we came back from that trip, so we're talking like almost 5 years ago.
Are you talking about the series? Because he wrote there was a whole series.
Maybe, but I just remember specifically, maybe it was but the thing that stood out to me is he told the story of this young man from their village, their community in Guatemala, and the enormous financial risks that the young man's family took to try to get him to the United States, because it was going to be life-altering for their family if he could get here and begin to work and make money and be able to send back and support his family, and the awful, horrendous conditions that people travel on foot to get here. And I just there's just so many broad strokes that are made of, I just don't even want to dignify them by saying them out loud. But broad strokes are painted of who the people that are trying to come to our country are. And often it is really desperate people who are just looking for an opportunity, not just for themselves, but for, an entire family back wherever home is. They're looking for a better way. And how arrogant to think that I would be entitled to that just because this happens to be where I was born, where God decided to place me on this planet. And that I'm entitled to this and no one else is. There's just so many ways we could go. But I just wish people would wrestle with that thought of, and Women of Welcome is a great place to educate yourself on who really is coming to this country and why are they coming and what percentages of actual people and, fall into different categories. And so, yeah, it's something that, especially right now, is breaking my heart on the daily, every day.
Yeah. Yeah, every day. Like I said, no one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. Mm-hmm. And I really saw that in the country that I was in this summer. When I was meet with these refugees, and I remember asking one of them, who actually has now left that country and has gained, she was able to get a visa and is now in Uganda.
Okay.
And I remember asking her, what do you miss most about Afghanistan?
Yeah.
And she said, everything. And it just broke my heart.
Yeah.
Because I was like, she does not want this. But she's wanted by the Taliban. Her brother is already in prison. Her dad had been put to death, beheaded. Another brother had been beheaded. And I thought, she doesn't have a life here where she's at. But she is alive. That's it. And it was so sobering to me to realize how badly she wanted to be in her home country.
Sure.
But that's not an option for her probably ever again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just think that it would be really good for us to remember Jesus as a refugee and to be so thankful that he was able to go somewhere and be safe.
Yeah.
Because redemption wouldn't have happened if Herod had got his way.
Right.
So I think that we should probably try to take the humble posture of a servant and offer a lot of compassion to a lot of hurting people who are living in fear. They're all around us. And it would be really easy to look the other way. Okay, friends, I know that was really heavy, and it's kind of got me a little emotional and teary-eyed. I think you may not be able to come back to the table for a while, Twyla, because this is 2 episodes in a row. I think you've made me cry. And you're like, I didn't do
Girl,
that
you have emotionally worn me out.
Kimberly doesn't make me cry at the table.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's not you. It's the content.
It's the weight.
It's the weight of it.
Yeah,
it's the weight of it.
Yeah.
So there's not an easy way to transition back to the passage. But when you were reading in verse 15, they stayed until Herod was dead. And then the Lord said that they could go back. And that whole prophecy, out of Egypt, I called my son. I want to just pause there for a minute because this is a prophecy fulfilled from Hosea 11, verse 1, which originally applied to Israel as God's son during the time of Moses, and Matthew is applying it to Jesus. And what we know is that Israel was God's disobedient son, covenant breakers, but Jesus was God's beloved, obedient son who did what they could not do and was obedient to the covenant. And Matthew is going to begin to highlight Jesus taking a similar journey to Israel from exile to the promised land. And I like to think of it as where they failed, Jesus triumphed. And I like to think of that because I can apply that to myself. Where I have failed, Jesus has triumphed. So Matthew is going to continue to link the Old Testament with the New Testament. And the last few years, I've been learning so much about what Jesus did in his ministry and how almost everything that he did has some connection to Israel's past or to a connection in the Old Testament. And it has really changed the way that I read the Bible, and it's changed the way that I read the Gospels, because I'm like, this whole thing is connected. I can't tell you, so many times I'll be listening or reading and I'll come across some obscure phrase that takes me to some place that I wouldn't make a connection. And that's just so fun. I mean, the Word of God is fascinating, and the Bible is the best commentary on itself. And we are very biblically illiterate here in the West, and I just want to encourage you, as the new year is approaching, figure out how you are going to get in the Word more. I think we're both going to do Bible recap again.
I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah, I'm going to do it with my young adults. They're super excited. And do you know, one of the reasons that I'm doing it with them is because they themselves, when we were asking them, like, what do you guys want to study next year? Like, we had just finished a couple of books of the Bible that we had studied in depth. And they were like, I kind of like to do the whole Bible. And I was
Good
like,
for them.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Because they recognized that they were biblically illiterate. And several of them used that term.
Yeah.
And they were like, I know a lot of Bible stories, but I still feel really illiterate. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, that's what we're doing next year. And I also thought about just thinking about Egypt and all the ties. And so some of the other places that my mind goes to is I remember that Abraham, living in the Promised Land, had to flee to Egypt temporarily during a famine. And then I also thought about well, you have to think about Joseph being sold into slavery, taken to Egypt, and then how another famine caused the whole family of Jacob and all of the sons of Israel to end up in Egypt, which of course set up the 400 years of slavery to the Egyptians. Yeah. But what I love most is I was thinking about this, I was thinking about how Genesis Joseph, not Matthew Joseph, probably important to clarify, but in Genesis 50, verse 20, talking to his brothers who had sold him into slavery, he said to them, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives."
Isn't that so good?
That's so good.
It's so good.
So good. So such a good verse that I was like, here's a great opportunity to insert this verse into this passage that we're talking about, because what Joseph was doing, he was like, God had sent him ahead to save people from a famine. And God sent Jesus to Egypt to save his life so that he could save all of our lives. Yeah. The many lives of all of us who would believe in him for the salvation of our souls. It's just amazing to think about.
Yeah.
So that's a really good bright spot in this episode.
It is good.
Sprinkled between like the heavy part at the beginning about refugees, and now we're going to get into another really hard part of this story. So can you read this section?
Picking up with verse 16. When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. Then what was said through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. A voice is heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more.
This is horrific.
I can't even imagine.
It's so hard to read. I mean, when I think about passages that kind of come to life, like in my mind, this comes to life because I can just almost feel the grief and the lament and the mothers screaming. And I probably, because my family did lose a child, my parents, my sister, and I do remember, it's just imprinted in me, arriving at the hospital to find out that my sister had passed as a 7-year-old child and hearing my mother screaming. And when I read this passage,
Yeah.
That's what I think about. How awful it would have been to have your child ripped out of your arms and put to death just because it was a little boy born in the wrong time frame. Mm-hmm. It's a hard thing to read. But what we know about King Herod, in the long list of horrific things that Herod did, this was considered by secular historians to be so minor that it didn't even make the history books. This is only recorded in the Word of God. And when we read this shocks us. Mm-hmm. But by Herod's standards, a man who killed his favorite wife, his sons, and everyone who was a threat to him, this wasn't even a footnote in the list of terrors that he carried out. But friends, it was not minor to God. And it wasn't minor to Matthew, because every life matters. And this is what I would call pro-life record keeping. Because the Jews get accused of a lot of things, but they are very pro-life.
Yeah.
They are not. They have been painted very poorly through history and in recent history. And I think that, having just, lived through this fall when the hostages were released, the last living hostages, and then just their steadfastness to make sure that every body was returned to Israel, that they don't rest. And I just say that because I think, this is a part of their DNA, of who they are. And I want to make sure that our audience understands and receives that. So when you read this, this cut them to the heart. Now, the size of Bethlehem is believed to have been less than 1,000 people, maybe even as small of a community as 300 people, meaning probably less than a dozen boys met the 2 and under age requirements to be slaughtered. One is too many, but I have found some comfort in knowing that it wasn't thousands of children. Yeah. Because sometimes when you read a passage like this, it's easy to think, to be really overwhelmed, right? Yeah. So there was a lot of grief in this community, and it was a lot for them to bear. And when we read that, the prophecy, the fulfillment out of Jeremiah 31:15, a voice is heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning. This originally referred to the mourning of Israel's mothers during the conquest and captivity of the nation, mothers weeping for their slain children and others weeping over their children being carried off to captivity to Babylon. And here, Rachel is a representative of Bethlehem's mothers, because we mentioned in the last episode that it was near Bethlehem that Rachel died, giving during her childbirth to Benjamin. So this is a place familiar with grief. And if you listened to last week's episode, you know that we talked just about how heavy of a place it is even today, that lament is in the DNA of the ground of the cities. It's just you feel the weight of it. Yeah. Probably why it undoes me when I'm there. So let's go on to the next section.
Okay, we're going to pick up with verse 19. After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead." So he got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and he lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophets, that he would be called a Nazarene.
Thanks, Twyla. So, a little thing that I'm unclear on whether these verses mean that Joseph had one or two dreams. I think it's two dreams. What do you think, Twyla?
I always thought of that as two dreams.
Yeah. Because I was like, is he just referencing maybe I'm the only one who wonders this. Maybe everybody's like, what is wrong with her? Our decision here at the table is we feel like it was two dreams.
Yeah.
So what's clear in Matthew is that Joseph was directed through a series of probably 4 dreams. And when he was directed, he responded promptly and with obedience to all of the Lord's directions and warnings. And I know that you weren't at the table, but when Kimberly and I really got into Joseph's story in this first episode in this big fans of Joseph.
Right? No, I always think that. I'm like, thank God he was obedient. Thank God he responded. Thank God he was in tune with,
not
the voice of God. Like, that you were walking in sync, that you were able to hear God's voice. Like, thank God.
Yeah. I mean, like, when an angel showed up in a dream, like he responded.
Yeah.
I love Joseph.
Yep.
And I have just this whole time just sitting in these first chapters has been really, he has gone just higher and higher up in the book.
There, Joseph, mad respect.
And so the redirected, because it feels like he probably wanted to go back to Bethlehem. He wanted to go back to at least the Judean area. But they're being redirected to go back to Nazareth. And I say go back because we know that in Luke's gospel, in Luke 1:26 and 27, that Mary and Joseph were both from Nazareth. And I think it's interesting that they were directed to go back to the place where the pregnancy scandal began. And they were being directed to live now in a place where there were likely rumors circulating and whispers. And I just wonder what the Lord was doing. I wonder about how living there made them feel. What do you think? Have you ever thought about that?
No.
I mean,
I've always at the onset of the story, I've always thought about man, were his parents are you sure about this? People had questions, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There were whispers. There had to have been. No, I never thought about this of oh, wow, you're going back. And all the same folks are probably still there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd never thought about that. Wow. Yeah.
Because it's a small place.
Yeah.
And they're being asked to live in a place where they were going to be exposed and vulnerable. And a place where I feel like shame was going to be projected upon them. There just wouldn't be a way to avoid it. It's really shaken me up to kind of think about that.
Yeah. I'd never thought about that. I just always thought about it from the beginning of the story, and thinking about, wow,
yeah,
but you're right. Wow. How did I miss this?
I mean, it's been a few years, but because we've referenced Ruth a couple of times in these episodes, when Naomi returned back to Bethlehem in that story with Ruth, decades had passed. A long time had passed. Or at least 1 decade, a long period of time. And all the people were just oh, Naomi's back. And so
it's small, it's communal. It's not like here where you come home from work and pull in your garage, put the garage door down before you even get out of your car. These people are doing life together.
So they're coming back.
Yeah.
And they've got a child with them.
Yep.
And they're that's the child. And so I'm am just fascinated by
Yeah.
it. So Nazareth was an undesirable place to live with regional prejudices. To be called a Nazarene was a slur, and I think that's the point that Matthew wants us to take hold of. Mm-hmm. Because remember when Jesus was calling the disciples in John's gospel, what does Nathanael say?
Right?
Nazareth? Nazareth? Can anything good come from there? I mean, that just shows us the stigma around
how common it was to say that so flippantly, so freely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I also think it's really important to say, because there's not a direct prophecy that we can turn to that says in the Old Testament that he would be called a Nazarene. So if Matthew had one in mind, it's likely Isaiah 11:1, which doesn't sound like it would go together, but hang with me. A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots, a branch will bear fruit. And the Hebrew word translated branch sounds like Nazar. And of course, Jesse is the father of David. So when we read that verse, the stump of Jesse connects us back to David, that Jesus being the son of David. And I think that's, again, an important connection that Matthew is trying to make. Matthew is also likely drawing on multiple places in the Old Testament, in the Psalms and in the prophets, that have little references about the Messiah would be despised. And here's the one that I love the most. And there's a number. It's a good little Bible search for you to do. But my favorite one comes from Isaiah 53. And I would love for you to read verses 1 through 3.
Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. Like one from whom people hide their faces, he was despised, and we held him in low esteem.
Yeah. I love all of Isaiah 53. It just helps me to take in the weight of what Jesus went through. Mm-hmm. Like, personally, the mental components are really captured here. Jesus grew up in a despised place to be despised and rejected. Mm. And when I think about he will be called a Nazarene, these are the passages in Isaiah that I go to.
Yeah.
And I love that in both of these passages, there's the tender shoot and there's it just fits like puzzle pieces together. And so as I'm thinking about, we went through the first half of Matthew 1 in the last episode. And then in the second half of Matthew 2, I just see Jesus identifying with refugees, identifying with outsiders. Of course, he was identifying with the Magi who visited him, the outsiders who had a place at his table. And then to live among people who were looked down upon because of the place that they were from. Like, I get this because I'm from a small town in eastern Kentucky, and there was a people group in our community that was really looked down upon because they were mixed. They were African American, Native American and like a European descent. I think maybe Portuguese. Like it was like this. It was like a tri-racial. And I never knew any personally, but all I knew that was in my small town. I mean, people, this is a small town. At the time that I grew up there, it was like a one stoplight town. No major grocery stores, things like that. It was small. But in that community, which seemed really poor and forgotten, there was people who were even looked down upon, even more than the rest of us who were from there. And I just connect my hometown to this hometown that Jesus grew in. And Jesus just gets better and better to me when I see the type of people that he identified with, because he identified with all of us. We are all the types of people that need Jesus.
Now, I just think, gosh, like if Jesus showed up today, what would people do with him?
Where would he go?
Where would he go? But like, what would,
who would be the people who would recognize him and want to be near him?
Yeah.
As we go through Matthew, pay attention to the types of people who are flocking to Jesus. And then we need to be asking ourselves, would we be the type of people who were flocking to Jesus?
Yeah.
Or would we be these cranky disciples who were saying, no. He's not going to touch that child. He's not going to.
We're not going to take that route.
We don't want to go through there.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, and then pay attention to how Jesus responds to the disciples when they act like that. And then we need to be looking to see if there's any of that in us, because we want it to get the heck out.
Yep. 1,000%.
All right. This has been enough, Twilight. I can't talk anymore about refugees and racial slurs and prejudice. Like, it's a lot.
It is a lot, friend. It is a lot. But like I said before, I think it's so important for us to do due diligence. Like, stop and wrestle with these things. Check yourself. Like, really, I know a lot of tables started getting flipped for me when I really started asking God, like, show me where I'm getting things wrong that I think I've got right. And
that'll do it.
Dang, have the tables been flipped in so many places. So, man, it's too important not to.
Absolutely.
So, well, how about we wrap up with a bright spot? What do you think about that?
I think that's a great idea. We need good bright spots.
I have a fun one.
Okay.
Really fun.
I like a fun one.
Yeah. So, I think I had mentioned last time that I had a business trip recently. I went to a conference with my boss. It happened to be in Las Vegas, which I'm not really a fan of, but there is usually some great entertainment there, right? And so we were like, okay, we got to go do something fun. Like, what are we going to do? We looked to see who had shows there at that time, and we both agreed on Kelly Clarkson.
So fun.
She was I've always been like, yeah, I like Kelly Clarkson. Like back in the days of like,
American Idol.
the what was it, Columbia Club or whatever, where you'd pay like a penny and you got like 12 CDs or whatever, right?
Are you saying that Kelly Clarkson has been around that long?
I had one of her CDs. Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I had no idea.
Anyway, so yeah, I've always liked her voice, thought she was great. She seems like a really likable gal. She was phenomenal. Like, I think I have not held her vocal ability in proper esteem. Her voice is so big.
Yeah.
And even if the story's not a story you personally relate to, she makes you feel the story that she's telling in a song. And she was just so much fun. Like, she was funny and she was so relatable and down to earth. And like, it was a lot of fun. It was a great concert. I would definitely pay money to see that girl again.
Okay, that was good.
It was fun.
I appreciate you giving us a good
Tell me
happy.
Surely you've got some fun for me.
I do, because I love to decorate for Christmas.
Yes.
And two of my really good friends and I got to go to this little small town close to Lexington called Shakertown.
Yeah.
And we got to decorate for Christmas and make greenery and drink hot chocolate and have lunch in this darling little restaurant. It was just so fun.
Oh.
It felt really Hallmarky.
Yeah.
Without all the weird drama.
Without the chick from the big city
Right.
who had to come home to settle the estate and ran into her high school boyfriend.
None of that.
Good.
That is not my jam.
I've not been to Shaker Village, so you have me feeling inspired because, it's right here. I should be doing this at some point, right?
Yeah, it's like 30 minutes away.
Yeah, I need to put it on the
There's no
list.
excuse. I had not been there before either. But
Okay.
anyway, I really enjoyed the whole experience. So that was a big bright spot in this
Good.
Christmas season
And
to
you
get
had
to do that.
Fun.
Yes.
Good. That's fantastic.
So friends, I know we've dumped a lot on you today here at the table. We just want to be really honest and transparent with you about the things that we are wrestling with, and we want to invite you to wrestle these things out with Jesus, because he is good and he is safe. So keep following the table flipper and leave the table flipping to Jesus.